Americans, eh? Lovely people, and great at just about any sport you care to mention. But frankly, whether it's a New York cab, a pickup truck, or a racing car, absolutely useless at driving. And the simple reason for this ineptitude? Americans don't like corners. In fact, the standard of driving is so poor that corners are avoided as much as possible. Is it any wonder that they invented drag racing? 2 cars driving in a straight line with no corners. And oval racing, long straights punctuated by a few gentle curves. But bless them, they have got some good circuits. And behind these doors, our very own redneck of race modelling, John Billy Bob Sword, has recreated one of America's finest, Watkins Glen. In each edition of Short Circuits, we create a scale model tribute to a celebrated racetrack and invite 6 dedicated slot racers to go head-to-head for a place in the series grand final. Set among forest, rugged mountains and meandering streams in New York State, the Glen's glory years were back in the 60s and 70s when drivers like Jim Clark and Graham Hill dominated. Today, it plays host to sports car racing, historics and NASCAR. The Glen, thankfully, isn't an oval. It's actually a combination of medium-length straights and 11 quite tight corners. The fastest part of the circuit is also the best place to overtake. As drivers barrel through the S's and then hammer down the straight, the braver drivers will outbrake their rivals into the loop. But they'll need to make it stick here, in the boot, the tightest part of the circuit, where I'm sure we'll see plenty of drivers ending up in the gravel trap. Our drivers may not be American, but even they'll find it difficult to be great at the Glen. Racing today's short circuit are 3 teams of dads and lads. From North Devon, we've 14-year-old Chris Stone, accompanied by Rick Stone, who runs a slot racing club in Barnstable.
When I'm racing against my dad, it's easy, but he's a good challenge most of the time.
So I find that if I can match his lap times within half a second to a second, I think I'm doing well.
From Exeter comes 12-year-old Tom Yude and his father Peter, who've been racing for 8 years.
It's competitive. I don't win all the time, but sometimes he wins, sometimes I don't.
We've weighed up the competition and, yeah, we think we're in with a good chance.
Finally, from Kent come Alan and Richard Green.
We're a team, and our team name is Racing Green.
If I beat my dad, he just looks at me, smiles at me, goes red and goes, I can't take this no more.
I've been told if I come round that last bend, I must yield.
Our message for the other team is, it is my birthday. Go on, let us win.
Yeah, we're quietly confident.
We would really ask them to remember the Green Cross Code.
Stand at the curb, look right, look left, and Racing Green are coming through.
Watkins Glen in America is a superb racing circuit. It's set in a mountainous area with rugged terrain. A lot of rocky outcrops appear around the edges of the circuit, and so we're now going to represent some of those features. I've selected natural resources to do this. The materials that I'm going to use are rocks. I've chosen this rock to start with as a foundation for the whole of the scene. I like this one in particular because it's got a flat bottom, so it sits nicely onto our wooden boards. When you look at the front, you can see it's got quite a nice shape to it. And it does look like a much larger rocky outcrop. As we build this up now, we're looking to use other rocks that look interesting, that actually start to develop the scene. In this case, we're going to introduce a few new colours, also some more jagged edges. When we place this one down by the side, those are the 2 rocks now onto which we'll build the remainder. Once again, another rock can be placed on top, this time a bit more vegetation, and that's in keeping with the whole of the general scene. Also, again, it's taking the height of the whole thing upwards and making it fill out and expand. Some smaller rocks now. and then a few more smaller ones over the top. Just by filling in any holes around the bottom, it starts to look as though it is naturally coming out of the landscape. Now that I've arranged the rocks, it's looking quite good, but nowhere near finished yet, because all we've got is the natural resources and materials that we're using, and now I'm going to add into this scene some of the models that we've used before, in particular the trees. I've already built another set of hills over there on the circuit, and what I'd like to do now is just give it the finishing touches by adding a few more materials into the scene to make it a little bit more rugged. These are the hills that I made earlier, and what I'm going to do now is just add the finishing touches to complete the scene. I'm going to add the Walton touch, making them appear to be a lot more rugged than they are at the moment. To do that, I've been out in the courtyard and I've got myself a load of stones and rocks of various sizes that I can scatter into the gully that I made earlier, all through the middle here. I'm really pleased with what I've done so far. It's starting to look really good. But over on the rocky outcrop, there's something still missing. This scene is almost complete now. All we need to do is introduce two American campers, Hank and Mary Lou. And the reason for this is because you are allowed to camp on the infield at Watkins Glen.
These days, the Glen is best associated with America's favourite racing series, NASCAR. Good old-fashioned American racing, with drivers called Ricky, Buddy, Rusty and Randy. And your typical fan is a blue-collar, beer-swilling redneck type in a baseball cap. John loves it. The cars all look absolutely identical, but they're very fast, there's loads of overtaking, and it's fantastic for slot cars. Stock car racing started in America after the war, with bog-standard saloon cars often rented for the purposes of the race. Things have changed a bit since then. The cars are now purpose-built racers, but still retain a flavour of the good old days in their basic spec. They're big, they're heavy, they're spectacular, they sound fantastic, and they're great fun to slot race. Now, John, today we're going to be racing in NASCAR-style slot cars. Now, actual NASCAR racing, hugely popular in America. Big, crude V8 engine cars. I mean, they look almost identical, but actually this one's a Ford, this one's a Pontiac Grand Prix. Basically, they all conform to a very rigid set of rules. The idea is to provide close racing, which is what you get. But how does that translate into how these cars are going to drive as slot cars?
Well, basically, these cars are great. They're really good fun because of their sheer size and the weight. They handle very differently to any other type of slot car. So it's great because you're introducing another class into the hobby. Basically, though, if you turn them upside down, then we see a different story. Although on the outside they look very, very similar, you can see in this case we've got two cars set up very differently. This one, where the motor there is positioned midway down the body. The other one, the other example, it's a sidewinder. The main difference is the sidewinder, I think, performs better due to the fact that it's smoother. Also, your motor is actually mounted over the rear axle, giving you weight over the rear axle just where you need it. Although your magnet is positioned slightly more forward. You can see on that one, it's more to the rear.
Can't I just have 3 magnets in? And then,
I'm surprised, actually, you haven't put 3 magnets in there. I have been looking.
John, I wouldn't have the first idea how to do it.
No, not really.
That's your department.
I heard you brought in a consultant for this race, actually.
Well, I'll do whatever it takes to beat you, John Sword.
Not going to happen, mate.
Well, John, I think I'm going to go for the Ford Taurus. It has a Cosworth Racing V8 engine, almost 700 horsepower. Slightly less in slot car form, but to scale, it should feel pretty similar, I hope. Well, John, I think I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
I think you're ready for this one, aren't you?
I am. I'm gonna take it easy this one. In the past, I've made the mistake of going out too quick, and you've intimidated me with your speed.
Right.
And you've drawn me in and then spat me out.
But now you've started to employ some tactics of your own, haven't you? First of all, you get yourself in a consultant, and then you took me out last night with the rest of the crew and got me blitzed. Now look at the state of me.
John, it was your birthday. You were having a lot of fun. Come on. Especially... Anyway,
5
let's not go there. Right, so watch the lights.
You did that. As predicted.
come on, put me back on.
He never learns this, lad.
I'm just saving me tyres. I don't want to take a lot out of them on the first couple of laps.
I don't think you get your engine warm, you, do you? Eh? Come on.
I thought the Sidewinder motor was supposed to be good.
I thought you'd improve.
4 miles ahead. I'm gaining on you now, shut up.
I'm slowing down for you. I'm letting you have a go. Come on.
I'm going to get you, Sword. I'm going to get you.
That must be about lap 3 now.
I can smell you. I can smell the trail of BO coming out of the side windows. You're not quite as quick, but they're a little bit easier to keep on the track, I think.
I think you're right, actually. I mean, you can definitely get the feel of these cars, can't you? See how different they are.
Yeah, and the way in which a real NASCAR is a big, heavy brute of a thing that's got no finesse, but you just have to manhandle it through the corners. I feel like I'm manhandling mine, but using the power of my right finger.
But there's a lot of power in these cars, and you feel this temptation to actually give it some down the straight, but you've got to slow down, otherwise you're off.
Yeah, because they are quite top-heavy, I suppose, aren't they?
Last lap. Come on, this is your last chance.
OK, I'll pick
On,
some
Jim, you're staying on, you're staying on. It's looking better. Come on, teasing you now, look, dragging you in. Come on. Oh, it's going to be tight at the end, but not that tight.
No!
Oh, on the last.
Don't believe it. I nearly had you then. I nearly won it. I spun off on a blooming hot lap.
Hot lap. You don't even know what hot dinner is, you. Never mind a hot lap, eh? You ever won a goldfish, have you?
Wait.
Do you think you were ever going to win?
Yeah. Oh, hang on, here I am. I'm in the lead again. Yes! Yeah! Hey. John's like a father to me, me slot father, and we have loads of fun racing together. But join us in part 2, where the racing gets serious, with the dads and lads heat of short circuits. Welcome back to Watkins Glen. The practice session is well underway and qualifying is next. But in the meantime, in the true spirit of America, here's Mr. John Sword with a word from our sponsor. John! You did a nice job on that, John, but let's face it, it's never going to be a collector's item, is it? Now, look at what we've brought here. Some of the guys.
Wow.
Rick and Chris have brought these in today. Now, I'm a big fan of this, the six-wheeler P34 Tyrrell from sort of the late 70s. Fascinating car, six-wheeler, gives you a much lower frontal area, so you've got like, it's better aerodynamically and also resisted understeer, but unfortunately it didn't remain competitive for very long, but I mean, what a fantastic car. Now, is this worth anything in slot car terms?
It's actually been manufactured solely for the collector's market, which is why it normally comes in a nice presentation box. It's fairly new, so the value of that has not increased very much at the moment, but I'm sure it will go up in time. But it is just a very nice model. At our club, there's a lad that races that. Yeah, just took it straight out the box, didn't care about the value, put it on the track because he prefers that type of car.
A couple of the guys have brought down what looks like some kind of museum display of the history of slots.
Yeah.
I mean, well, talk me through it. I don't know where to start. There's a range of different cars and different track.
The oldest car is this Mazda, which is an original Scale-X model, as made and invented by Fred Francis in the 50s.
Maserati 250F, Fangio raced this, of course. Oh, no, it's actually a Ferrari.
Is it?
It's a Ferrari.
Is it?
But they're very, very similar in those days, you see. And with them all being red, easy to make a mistake, you see. But a handsome beast. It looks like it's been played with a heck of a lot. So, I mean, this hasn't got a slot in it, has it? I mean, how does this work?
No. Right way back before slot racing was developed, these were the original die-cast cars. And the way that this worked was if you press down at the front and drag the car rearwards and then let go, it should shoot forward on its own.
Yeah, look at that, like lightning. OK, but what about this, John? This is a completely different sort of setup. This is a different and made, according to the box, by VIP Electric, Model Roadways.
Another English company, but Scale Electric was the original, and then there were a number of manufacturers that jumped on the bandwagon. VIP are one of them, and of course nowadays there are even more. We've got Ninco, Pro Slot, SEX, Fly.
Yeah.
You know, there's all over the world. There are manufacturers that are using the same system but just making variations on it.
I mean, this is really interesting. I mean, looking underneath, these have got braids, haven't they?
Yeah, again, this is one of the improvements that were made. It's using now the braids for electrical pickup, and the front wheels actually move with the steering as well.
Yeah, although I don't know if that makes any kind of sense in terms of the way it handles.
Just for
or anything like that.
aesthetics, really. I think it looks better with the car with the wheels that actually steer around the curves.
So, John, would these cars actually still work on normal modern track?
A lot of the cars on the track still work. Yeah, no, if they're in good condition, no problem. But most people want to retain them in good condition because they're collectors. And when you compare the old with the new, you actually see the magnet pull on this track. Look at that. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Flipping heck.
So the old aren't really competitive. It's really a reflection of today's motor racing against the olden days, isn't it? Where the old cars slide around all over the place. A lot of driver skill needed, and these really, you just put the
Well, that's all the downforce.
accelerator down and away you go.
And you've got all that extra grip. In fact, John, it's just occurred to me, this is like a microcosm of today's programme because you've got the old stager here, the MGA, the dads, and you've got the young whippersnappers here, the lads.
This is it.
So let's stop talking turkey. Let's get on the track for the qualifying session. In qualifying, the drivers race in each lane consecutively and are ranked according to their overall performance. At the end of the session, choice of lane for the decisive knockout race goes in order of position in the rankings. Lane advantage is all important in slot racing. So, which of our drivers will get pole position and first choice of lane?
Watch the lights.
Right from the off, it's obvious that the generation gap means nothing on short circuits. It's soon clear that this is going to be one of the most evenly matched heats in the series. Family ties are soon forgotten, and it's every man or boy for himself. Just starting heat 4. So far, we've had 3 different first places, 3 different second places, and 3 different third places. It's absolutely wide open. The pattern continues over the next 2 qualifying heats as all 3 teams pick up vital points. With the races being run at lightning pace and so little to choose between the drivers, Race Marshal John Sword has his work cut out, keeping track of the scores. Right, we've had 5 of the 6 qualifying sessions now, and it really is so close that anybody could end up on pole position. John, over to you.
Marshals in position, drivers ready. Watch the lights.
With everything to play for and nothing to lose, the stage is set for a thrilling finale to qualifying. Everyone goes for broke, leading to slot carnage and a dramatic conclusion. OK, that's the end of the last qualifying heat, and only 2 cars finished. Chris first and then Rick. Will that be enough to guarantee Chris pole position? Sadly, no. When the final scores are tallied, it's Dad Alan from the white team who picks up pole, with Chris in second, and Alan's son Richard in third. Now, John, during the practice session, I was expecting the toe of the boot, the tight corner sort of down the bottom end there, to catch a few drivers out. It's proved to be pretty easy.
We've made a lot of the infield sections, haven't we? They're all twisty and tight, but these guys seem to have mastered it. Even the youngsters like Tom done really, really well so far. Bearing that in mind, what I've done on this circuit is I've created them a problem by placing the grandstands on an area of straight just before a curve and masking the braking point. They can't see it.
So basically, cars coming down here, the drivers can't actually see what's happening, so it's very difficult to judge the braking.
That's right. There's quite a lot of action that can take place, which is obscured by the grandstands, so they've got to think about their braking a little bit earlier.
Is lane advantage going to play a part at this track, or specifically on that corner?
Well, naturally, on every circuit, the inside and the outside of the lanes of the circuits differ to the centre middle lanes. That's a fact of life. However, there are sometimes advantages to being in one of those lanes. On the inside of a curve, you've got the shortest route. Nobody else is in danger of knocking you off. On the outside of a track, you've got more room to get round as your car swings out to the outside. Not really a problem. But obviously, sometimes it's a longer length.
So it might suit somebody with a strategy of keeping out of trouble, basically?
I think so, yeah, definitely.
OK, so everybody's in with a shout?
I think so. Very open, even race this. Should be good.
6 dads and lads are about to face each other in today's Eliminator. Only those who finish in the top 3 will make it through to the semi-finals. The race is over 10 laps, and the rules are crash and burn.
Richard's like lightning out of the traps there, straight into the lead. Followed by Chris and his father having a bit of a ding-dong there on this first lap. Chris in the yellow car, of course, being hustled and harried by Alan in the white car. And he's got past him. Great bit of overtaking there, outbraked him into the right-hander, and now he's in a second place. But he's overcooked, he couldn't make his stick, it's on its roof, and Richard has got to have tears for his father. But I don't think he will, because he's in the lead, and he's leading by some margin. Peter in the red car. I'm afraid that's the end of your race, sir. Mechanical maladies happen to us all, that's motorsport. And now Richard starting to fire home his advantage, and Rick, of course, elevated now into a good third position. His son's in second place, he's in third place. And just look at the pace of Richard, he's absolutely unstoppable. This guy couldn't keep it on in qualifying. Now he's putting on an exhibition of driving skill. In fact, he's so far ahead that it's likely that he's going to lap both Rick and Tom. Tom there in fourth position so far, not going through to the semi-final. Now it's Richard from Chris, Chris! Second place, suddenly it's all gone sour for Chris. Devastated, the lad. But that means that his father is now in second place, and Tom has been promoted to third. Fantastic there for Tom. Steady, sure. Oh, he's off, but it doesn't matter. He's in third position. He will go to the semi-final. Now, all that remains is for Richard to drive this car round. Whatever speed, it doesn't matter. The man's so far in the lead, he is going to win this race. And Rick is going to come second. That's obvious. And, well, this is the last lap now. Just a couple of corners left. Bring it round and right onto the straight. It's the end of the race, and yes, a lap down. Rick comes to second, but Richard's a winner.
Well, a great race today at the Glen, and a victory for the lads.
It was, but at least one dad made it onto the podium. I suppose you should be quite happy with that.
Well, it is his birthday, isn't it?
Well, this is it.
But what about Alan? Started on the front row.
Yeah, he was the favourite, wasn't he? Our money was on him, but too much showboating and posing in front of the fans. Missed that blind spot on the grandstand straight. Come out the slot, race over.
But big congratulations to Richard, winning the whole event from third on the grid.
Yeah, young Tom as well, blinding race, really determined, stuck on there, and, you know, came through in the end.
Well done, lads.
Visit homeandleisure.co.uk/circuits for more info and a chance to win some slot car goodies. Meanwhile, stay with us for a mini Montreal competition after the break, as Short Circuits promises to keep the laps going.